Joyce Elizabeth Harper, born on December 9th, 1945, was a 31-year-old woman residing in Potrero, California, a small community near the Mexican border. She was described as being 5 foot 3 inches tall, weighing around 120 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. Joyce was also known by other aliases such as Joyce Gann and Vivian Ann Maddox. Sometime around January 1st, 1975, Joyce disappeared without a trace. Her absence went unreported for 2 decades. That is until December 15th, 1995, when one of her daughters filed a missing person report. The circumstances surrounding Joyce's disappearance are, strange. Living in a remote area, her sudden vanishing raised a few immediate alarms. However, the lack of early reporting and scarce details have hindered investigative efforts, leaving her case cold and cloaked in mystery. It just gets stranger. Approximately 2 years after Joyce's disappearance, her 15-year-old daughter, Kimberly Cozart, she also went missing. In February 1977, Kimberly was last known to be living on Banner Grade Road in Julian, California, which is another rural community in San Diego County. Like her mother Joyce, Kimberly's disappearance was not reported until December 15th, 1995, by the same sister who reported her mother Joyce missing. Kimberly's case, it's just as perplexing as her mother's. The delayed reporting and lack of concrete information, it's left investigators with little to pursue. The connection between the two disappearances remains speculative, with no confirmed evidence linking them beyond their familial ties and the eerie, similar circumstances. Several theories have emerged over the years regarding the disappearance of both Joyce and Kimberly. Foul play. Given the sudden and unexplained nature of both disappearances, some speculate that maybe foul play was involved. The rule settings, the errors limited communication, that could have facilitated such actions without immediate detection. Another theory suggests that possibly Joyce and Kimberly chose to leave their lives behind. However, the lack of contact with family and the delayed missing persons reports cast some doubts on this scenario. But who knows? Can it really be ruled out? And then, considering Potero's proximity to the Mexican border, some speculate that their disappearances could be linked to cross-border criminal activities that were very prevalent during that time. And then we have another issue, or a speculation. Was it domestic? Could there have been a problem in the home? Is it possible that underlying family or personal issues led to their disappearances? However, without concrete evidence, this remains conjecture at best. But why so late in reporting them? 2 decades. And then they go missing 2 years apart? Strange. Strange indeed. The significant delay in reporting both disappearances has been a major obstacle. Vital evidence that could have been collected shortly after the vanishings, that's lost over time. Additionally, the lack of dental records and fingerprints for both Joyce and Kimberly, it's further impeded identification efforts. However, despite these challenges, The San Diego County Sheriff's Department continues to seek leads. Both cases are open, with some DNA samples available for comparison. Investigators urge anyone with any information to come forward, hoping to shed some light on these enduring and strange mysteries. For the family of Joyce and Kimberly, well, the decades have passed with lingering uncertainty and grief. The daughter and sister who reported them missing in 1995 have sought closure, yearning for answers to the fate of their loved ones. The community has too. The community remains haunted by these unresolved cases, emblematic of the many missing persons whose stories fade with no resolution. In conclusion, the disappearances of Joyce Elizabeth Harper and Kimberly Cozart, they are poignant reminders of the complexities and challenges inherent in missing person cases, especially when crucial time is lost. Their stories underscore the importance of timely reporting and thorough investigations. As the years roll on, the hope still persists that new information or advancements in forensic science may one day provide the answers that their family and community have long awaited. And you, dear viewer, if you have any information regarding these two cases, please contact the proper authorities.
Lawton, Oklahoma, a city built on military order and routine, yet beneath its surface lies a history of vanished women, unexplained murders, and eerie connections. At the center of this mystery is Lisa Farmer, a young 18-year-old wife and mother who had just started a new chapter of her life. Married for only 3 months, she had recently moved into a new home with her husband and 14-month-old baby. On the night of August 2nd, 1983, Lisa spent her first night alone in the house. Her husband was away on a military training exercise, leaving Lisa and her child alone. By the following afternoon, Lisa was gone, and the only witness to whatever had happened was a crying child left alone in an unlocked home. Lisa's case is one of several tragic stories in Lawton, a town that had already seen multiple women strangled in their homes or lured to their deaths under disturbingly similar circumstances. But could this horror extend beyond Lawton? Just a 2.5-hour drive away, in Muskogee, another woman vanished under eerily similar circumstances. Was this the work of a single predator roaming from city to city? Or was it all a terrible coincidence? The last confirmed sighting of Lisa was at 8:30 p.m. on August 2nd, 1983. A neighbor saw her through the kitchen window, going about her evening. Sometime between then and the morning of August the 3rd, Lisa vanished without a trace. Her 14-month-old child was left behind, and it wasn't until 3 p.m. when neighbors investigated the sound of continuous crying that they discovered something was terribly wrong. The back door was unlocked. Lisa's money, jewelry, ID, and keys were untouched. The only thing missing? Lisa herself in a single floral print nightgown. No note, no signs of forced entry, no struggle. Would a devoted mother simply walk away, leaving her baby alone in an unfamiliar house that she had only lived in for 3 days? Or had someone entered through that unlocked back door? A visitor Lisa either knew and trusted, or someone skilled at slipping in unseen. Lisa was not the first young woman in Lawton to mysteriously vanish or meet a violent end. Just 5 years before, in 1978, another 18-year-old, Gina Lynn Bowman, was found strangled near a water tower. Her own pair of jeans used as the murder weapon. That following year, in 1979, yet another 18-year-old mother, Lillian Jean Watts, was strangled in her own home. She too was married to a military man who was away at Fort Sill on a 3-day exercise. When he returned, he found his 1-year-old daughter alone in the front room, unharmed. Some of the similarities are chilling. Some of these young women were married with military husbands. Each left behind a helpless child, untouched. In early 1983, Cynthia Lynn Ross, 22, was also found strangled and dumped in a pond. She had last been seen with a man named Kenneth Wagstaff, a figure whose name seemed to surface again and again in cases involving women meeting violent ends. What makes Lisa's case even more chilling is the distance between Lawton and Muskogee, Oklahoma, just a 2.5-hour drive apart. Could the same predator who stalked Lawton's women have traveled to Muskogee as well? The similarities between Lisa's case and others in Lawton were already disturbing, but if Muskogee is connected, then the scale of this horror could be even larger than anyone realized. Did Lisa unknowingly fall into the path of a serial offender who was widening his hunting ground? Or was this a separate case, one lost in the shadows of Lawton's other unsolved crimes? Kenneth Wagstaff, a New York native with a criminal past, had been accused of attempted murder and assault before. Despite being charged in Cynthia's death, he walked free in 1984 after a jury acquitted him, leaving lingering questions about his true involvement in Lawton's pattern of tragedy. Strangely, Lisa Farmer had also been possibly seen with Wagstaff before she vanished. Could he have been responsible? Was Lisa another victim in a calculated string of attacks on women left vulnerable while their husbands were away? Or was her disappearance something even more sinister and unknown? Lisa's disappearance, along with the strangulations of Gina Bowman, Lillian Watts, and Cynthia Ross, suggest a chilling pattern in Lawton. Young women, mostly tied to Fort Sill, their husbands absent, leaving them alone. Each case eerily quiet, no struggle, no warning. Children left unharmed, as if the killer had a twisted sense of purpose. But if Muskegee is connected, it raises even more questions. Was Lisa's disappearance the first in a wider pattern, one that would eventually spread beyond Lawton? Was there a single predator traveling between cities, exploiting the vulnerabilities of military wives left alone? Or were multiple attackers using the same cruel method, making these cases seem connected when they weren't? One disturbing possibility remains. If Lisa was murdered, where is her body? Lisa A. Farmer remains missing. Her case, one of Lawton's most haunting disappearances, is still open, waiting for the truth to emerge. Lisa's child, now an adult, grew up without a mother. Her family never received answers. Who took Lisa that night? Was she the victim of a known predator like Wagstaff? Why did he always manage to walk free? Did he have connections protecting him? Was her fate tied to the other women of Lawton and possibly Muskegee? Or did she encounter a killer no one ever suspected? One thing is certain. Somewhere, someone knows the truth.
The story takes us out of the Deep South for a moment to the golden streets of Sacramento County, California. It's October 8th, 1991. Timothy Armstrong, a man of just 34 years, goes about his life like any other morning. He isn't famous. He isn't in trouble with the law. He isn't someone with a long trail of enemies nipping at his heels. And yet, this morning would be his last in California. For on that day, Timothy disappears completely, without a word, without reason, without a trace. Law enforcement searched. His family begged for answers, but his days became weeks, and soon weeks turned into years. The trail grew colder than a forgotten grave. Timothy Armstrong was no longer a man of flesh and breath. He'd become only a file number, a faded photograph pinned to a corkboard. And for 6 long years, he existed only as a question mark. But then, nearly 3,000 miles away from where Timothy's story began, another chapter was written. It's now March 9th, 1998, in New Bern, North Carolina, a quiet town where the Neuse River runs wide and deep, and the pines whisper secrets to those willing to listen. Here Timothy Armstrong is found, dead. No one can say how a man vanished on the western edge of the country, only to reappear lifeless on the opposite coast nearly 7 years later. Did he run from something in California, trying to outrun a past he never spoke of? Did he follow a whisper of love crossing the country for someone whose name we'll never know? Or were there darker forces that plucked him from one coast and cast him down deep in the shadows of North Carolina? The records, they remain silent. No cause of death has been shared. No answers for his family. No justice. No peace. Only the eerie fact of distance, time, and unfortunately, death. Some say Timothy Well, he may have been murdered in California, his body carried across those miles from someone who wanted him hidden. Others whisper that he may have lived for years in secret, slipping into another life until fate caught up with him. And then there's the speculation that tugs at the heart, the possibility that love brought him here, that somewhere in the Carolinas he followed a promise, a person, a dream of something new. And perhaps, like so many stories of love, Timothy's story ended in tragedy. But then again, we must remind ourselves these are only theories, speculations that fill the silence where the truth is yet to speak. Timothy Armstrong's story is more than just a mystery. It's a haunting. It's a reminder that some lives vanish, not in a single moment, but across years, across miles, across the silent places in between. Did he flee? Did he follow love? Or did someone carry his silence with them across those roads? We may never know the answers. But here in the South, we understand that the land remembers. And somewhere between California's sun and North Carolina's pines, Timothy Armstrong's ghost still walks the road he never got to finish. On June 26, 1977, on his 20th birthday, John Clifton Ballinger stepped into the glow of the Satellite Beach movie theater, ready for what should have been just an ordinary night. He was with friends, out on a double date. And like millions across America that summer, they were there to see Star Wars. For most of the evening, everything was normal. Partway through the movie, John excused himself. He slipped out of his seat, whispered something about the bathroom, and vanished into the shadows. He never returned, not to his family, not to his friends, not to his life. John was carrying only about $15 in his pocket that night. No car, no plan. Nothing to suggest he was ready to walk away forever. But his life, like so many young men of that era, it wasn't simple. He had been struggling, out of work, drinking a little too much, using some illicit substances. Shadows were gathering around him, and maybe they were closing in. Not long before his disappearance, two of John's closest friends had been badly beaten. They lived nearby, and whispers were suggesting that maybe they'd been caught up in the local drug trade. Whether that violence reached John or whether it merely circled around him like a storm he just couldn't escape, well, we may never know the answer to that one. Police found no proof of abduction, no signs of foul play. Some said maybe he chose to disappear. After all, when he was 16, John had run away for 3 weeks. He was found, safe. But this time, this seemed so much different. This time, he never came back. What lingers is a cruel silence. A young man left his seat in a darkened movie theater and was swallowed whole by the night. 12 years later, the courts declared John Clifton Ballinger legally dead. But no grave has ever held him. No truth has ever surfaced. And somewhere between the Florida shoreline and the echo of the projector reel, the story remains unfinished, unsolved, and deeply haunting. October 2000, just weeks after moving in with relatives in the quiet town of Roseboro, North Carolina, 4-year-old Tristen Allen Myers vanished under mysterious circumstances. On the morning of October 5th, while his great aunt was resting, Tristen wandered away from the family's rural home, accompanied only by 2 dogs, Buck, a tan 3-legged Chihuahua mix, and Sasha, a young black Doberman. What followed was a desperate search that gripped the community and puzzled investigators for decades. Search teams combed the nearby woods for days. There was no trace. Until suddenly, Buck returned home. Days later, Sasha followed. Strangely, neither dog appeared dirty or injured, casting more doubt and confusion over truly what happened that day. But one thing was for certain, Tristen was missing. Sadly, this wasn't the first time Tristen had wandered off. Just days prior to his disappearance, he was found at a nearby farm. His short life had already been marred by loss and hardship. His young mother, who had Tristen at 15, had died tragically in a car accident. And then a series of unstable living arrangements followed. While living in the care of his grandparents, his grandfather ran over him, breaking his leg. He then was placed in the care of extended family, his grandfather's brother and wife. Tristen struggled emotionally and developmentally, and had recently undergone a brief hospital stay for an evaluation. Some believe Tristen may have been abducted. Others fear he may have wandered into danger, perhaps falling into a nearby body of water. Despite countless leads and tips over the years, no definitive answers have ever been found. Today, the case remains open, a haunting mystery from the heart of North Carolina. On a cold January evening in 2010, a routine burglary call in Durham, North Carolina, took a sudden and dark turn. Police were searching a wooded area near Chandler and Ross Road for a suspected burglar when they made a chilling discovery, one they definitely were not expecting. Hidden beneath the winter brush was the body of a young woman, her name Crystal Lynn Jersey Baker. She was just 24 years old. Crystal's death was immediately ruled a homicide. The nature of the scene suggested something much more personal and far more violent than just a random attack. Details from the medical examiner's report, well, they painted a grim picture. Crystal had endured extensive trauma with multiple sharp and blunt force injuries. The brutality spoke volumes, though the motive remains locked in silence. Now, not much is known about the hours leading up to Crystal's death. Some reports that she was last seen at a nearby Budget Inn off Holloway Street, just 2 miles from where she was found. But who was she with? How did she end up in the woods? And when she was found, she didn't have on any shoes and only one sock. So was she placed there? The place she was last seen at the Budget Inn, is that indeed where she met her demise? Well, see, all these things, they're still a mystery to this day. Crystal, like many, faced challenges in her life. She'd had some legal trouble, minor charges tied to property and drug-related offenses, and she had been sentenced to probation just weeks before her passing. But to those who knew her, Crystal, she was more than just a case file. She was someone trying to find her way. Nicknamed Jersey for her northern roots, she was full of spirit and fight. Investigators have never said whether drugs or her past could have played a role in her passing. But one thing is very clear: someone wanted Crystal gone, and they acted with a vicious, cruel intent. There was no indication of a robbery, no known enemies, and in spite of the intense violence, no one has ever been charged. Years have passed. Crystal Lynn Baker, well, her name rarely makes the headlines now, but the case is indeed still open, quietly waiting for someone to come forward, someone to remember, someone to finally talk. If you know anything about what happened to Crystal Baker, please contact the Durham Police Department, 919-560-4118, or you can submit a tip online. Your silence, well, that could be the final lock keeping her story unsolved.
If you found this story haunting, share it. Maybe the right pair of eyes or ears will see it, and a mystery can be solved.